and welcome everybody. Let's just dive right into it. We're going to do a few slides. We'll get into a live demo of the product and then return back to a couple of slides at the end. So quick overview of the agenda. So we're going to be talking about controlling the project lifecycle on Microsoft 365 using BrightWork 365. I'll start with an overview of BrightWork 365, sort of a quick overview of that. The second bullet point, the value of flexible project management process. That's going to be kind of sprinkled throughout the entire discussion here. And I emphasize the word flexible because, you know, it's not once, although I think we could all agree some project management process is a good thing, it's not one size fits all. So I'll kind of give you some ideas of where the flexibility comes in. We'll talk about creating projects with best practice templates, including how you create projects and the flexibility in there as well. Then once we get into a project itself, how those projects can be controlled using stage gates. Some might call it phase gates. And then a bit about reporting on projects and how that ties into controlling the project lifecycle as well. Before we get too much into that, a quick poll that Mihal is going to help me with here.
Yeah, I'm just kind of wondering which aspect of the project lifecycle is the most challenging for you guys? So obviously this is something that we're all interested in here on the call. So I'm just kind of curious which one you find the most challenging. And straight out the door, Jonathan, most people are saying tracking multiple projects, which is really interesting.
Yeah, exactly. What are you seeing as the second one?
You know, it's up at 80% of people say that's tracking multiple projects, and then we've got 10 people are on project selection. So, and then it's split 6 and 3 between the middle two.
Okay.
So I'm just going to let this run. Most people have voted, but I just want to give everybody a chance. So just let this run for another couple of seconds, if that's okay with you guys. And we'll go 3, 2, 1. Thanks a million, folks. Really appreciate that.
Great. Back to the deck. Okay, so quick overview. What's the composition of BrightWork 365? So of course, it's the BrightWork product itself, and you can see here BrightWork's been around for quite a long time, both on the SharePoint side and we're on the Power Platform side as well now. The other aspect, of course, is Microsoft 365. So that'll be a subscription that customers will have to Microsoft 365, which includes all that goodness that you see there. And as well, also with the Microsoft platform is the Power Platform, the Power Apps piece, the optional Power BI piece, Power Automate, Dataverse. All of these combined together, we get the BrightWork 365 product, all kind of neatly wrapped into this product. Now, in terms of what's our approach? So the approach is to give you much more than just a product. We're really giving you a relationship in addition to the product, a relationship with our customer success people and department. And what we encourage is a quick start. So basically you get the product, you're going to have consulting conversations with our customer success partners. They'll help you get started quickly to use the product, keeping a list of requirements for the first iteration, as well as a backlog of how you'd like to evolve the product going forward. And it's an ongoing relationship. It's not just a quick hello, goodbye. It's actually, hopefully, a lifelong, for the product, a product lifelong relationship that you have with our customer success partners. On to the demo. Let me just bring up my screen here. Okay, so a quick overview of the product. There's several main areas that we'll be speaking about. What you're looking at here is where the bulk of the time that your colleagues will be spending with BrightWork 365 would be in this interface, and we'll be coming back. We'll be kind of digging into certain aspects of this deeply. Otherwise, other ones will be kind of quick. But you can see here it's metrics about the portfolio, the projects. It's some reporting about work that's assigned to you, the logged in user, as well as dashboards, which we will look at later. There's a request process, which we'll get into. Projects is where you're actually managing your projects, as well as we've broken out what I consider to be extremely important aspects of the projects, which are issues and risks. We'll touch on that as well. And then, of course, a way to track the granddaddy of them all, which is the portfolio level, and then the one level down, which would be the programs that fall within the portfolios. If I click down at the bottom here, depending on your security role, you may or may not see these other aspects of it. We have a templates area, which again, I'll touch on a little bit more as I get further into the agenda, but we give you great flexibility. Like I said, flexible control, let's call it. Ways for you to change aspects of the forms that your colleagues will see. Forms, how the requests for new projects will behave, as well as what the how the projects themselves will be structured. So we'll get into that a bit later. And then finally, again, depending on your security role, there is an admin area. The admin area is going to be a combination of it. It's the type of information that's going to be of most use for an administrator of the product, as well as a way to populate some of the drop-down column choices that your users will see. So again, those are three sections: project area, template, and admin area. And again, most of yourselves as well as your colleagues are going to be spending time in this area here. Another thing I'd like to point out is our knowledge base. You can get to the knowledge base either from within the product, clicking on help, or you can get to it directly through a URL in a web browser. It would be help365.brightwork.com. And if you're interested in more information about basically anything that I mentioned today, you'll find a good deal of it within the knowledge base, as well as conversations that you can have with our sales associates post this webinar, as well as an opportunity to take a survey. Okay, great. So let's talk about the next agenda item, which is creating projects with best practice templates. In terms of flexibility, you have a couple of choices. You could, of course, go through the entire request process, which is a formal request process, and we'll look at that in just a bit. Or for a certain segment of your users, again, depending on their security roles, you give that particular set of users the ability to create projects skipping the request process. So for them, they could just click on new, not wait for any approvals, and get those projects created. But let's talk about probably the more common road, which would be for people to go through the actual request section over here. So when you create a new request, let's just open up this one here. Depending on the type of request template that the person is submitting will dictate the fields that show up on the form. So again, that gives you flexible control. You as an administrator or somebody who's potentially creating the templates in the back end, you can control what kind of information you need to gather up front, including things like what's the economic impact, what are the actual objectives. Tell us, the people who need to decide whether this is something we want to approve, what the overall project risk is. And the way to control projects successfully is right up at the front by choosing the appropriate projects to begin with, or what you think are the most appropriate projects to begin with. So getting these information and sort of changing the fields that are going to display based on the type of project that people are requesting is another way that you can control the entire life cycle. The other aspect of the request would be the approvals. So again, it depends on your security role. Not everybody is going to see this tab that says approvals on it, but everybody will be affected by this, whether they can see the tab or not. The person who can sort of manipulate what goes on in here and gets all of the notifications is called the approvals coordinator. So you can assign somebody to that role. And they could change the values that you see here. These values are going to be, so there's going to be default values that will show up for everybody. And that's part of the template process or template creation process. We could look at that a little bit later. But if you want to give some flexible control to the approvals coordinator, he or she can come in here and they can change who the approvers are. They can change whether there'll be additional email text in the approval email that goes out to the approvers, and whether or not the subsequent approval stages. So, for example, when you're going from accepted to approved, whether that should automatically kick off after the prior stage cycle is approved, or if you want it to be within the control of the coordinator, who will control when that next approval request will go out. That's all done through here as well. Now, in terms of what do the emails look like, that's another aspect of controlling this. Let's just take a quick look. Here's an example. This would be the email that goes out to the approvals coordinator, just kind of a heads up to them that, hey, somebody is requesting a new project to be created. And then we have the email that goes out to the person or people who have to actually make the approvals. So that's going to look like this over here. There's going to be information about it. There might be additional email text in here to give these folks a better indication of whether or not they should be approving this request for a new project. And of course, it gives them the power to control whether or not it passes this stage of the request process, whether it gets rejected, or sort of a soft rejection. Goes back to draft, asking for more information, maybe asking for more kind of rationale for why this request should get approved, and then get another opportunity to either approve or reject it. So the other aspect of the control would be, what is the project going to actually look like? So after the request gets approved, assuming it gets approved, what is that project going to look like? We don't just want people, we want somewhat of a cookie cutter situation, but of course with flexibility. Now, you can control that by choosing sort of the makeup or the structure of what that project is going to look like after it gets created. Part of the way that you do that is with what we call content templates. So let's say you want every single project that gets created to have a certain set of tasks in them, a certain set of maybe pre-populated risks as well. It's a great way to control projects, is to have very good risk management. So you have the option, this isn't you're not dictated to do this, this is an option to create what we call a content template. I'm going to click into that. Now we could probably do an entire webinar on content templates, so I'll just kind of try to keep it simple. And I think the simplest definition of a content template is, when the project gets created, certain data should come along with the project when it gets created. So for example, these are all different choices of content templates that could be attached to the project when it gets created. So I'll just click on this one, for example. You'll see that when the project gets created, it will come pre-populated with this specific set of stages here. It will come with this task list here and structured in the hierarchy that you see here with suggested dates or durations as well. It could come with issues pre-populated also. Probably more common is for it to come with pre-populated risks. So, risk management is something that I'm a big fan of, but it's not something that people generally take to naturally. It's something that takes some education. How do you do risk management? What exactly is a risk? So you can make the process of doing risk management a lot easier and a lot more control of your projects if you pre-populate it with some risks. So, and just briefly, risks are basically, these are items that could potentially, based on maybe history of similar projects, could become issues for us if we don't become sort of cognizant of them at the very beginning of the project. It's not only just a list of risks that could be pre-populated, it could be a lot of additional data about those risks as well. So again, that's all part of what's called a content template. If you want to control not just the data that's part of it, but the actual structure as well. So you can control whether or not the project that gets created is going to come with risks and issues or not. So you can see here, here's an example of a project that got created that did not come with risks and issues. Maybe that's what, again, what we mean by flexibility. Maybe for a certain type of project, it doesn't call for formal risk management or issue management. Let's just see if we can get one that does have issues and risks. Just widen this a bit. So here's an example where you get everything. It's like the full menu. Of course, you get the Gantt, and of course, you get the stages and the charter, but you also have an actions list. But for our purposes, in terms of really controlling the project and the project lifecycle, you can see that it does include a risk management module here, and it does include issue management as well. It has costs and communications also. So you could see that there's flexibility to go with a lighter template. You can go with a more full-fledged template. This is something that you can discuss with your customer success partner as you're going through that first iteration. What kind of flexibility do you want with the templates that get created for you? Now let's talk about the next agenda item, which is controlling projects with stage gates. So let's go into another project here. Okay, so here we are. The project was approved. The project was created, but we want to have some control as to when the project can get from one particular stage to the next. So going from chartering to execution, for example, going from execution to closeout, and for closeout to closed. But again, the key is flexibility. So what you could do, you as somebody who has the right security role, you can design this template in such a way that either maybe the lightest way would be that to go between any of these stages, the project manager has great control. He doesn't have to go and get approval to go from one stage to the next. He could just simply click on next stage and it'll go to the next stage. Or you can take sort of a middle ground of control, which is where maybe to go from this stage to this one, you potentially do want outsiders or stakeholders to approve that it gets from one stage to the next, but maybe going from one of the other stages to another stage, that would be within the control of the project manager. All of that is going to be controlled from within this approvals tab. You saw an approvals tab when we were in the requests. This is going to be a similar control mechanism at the project level. And once again, not everybody's going to see this approvals tab. It is going to be security trimmed. So if we come here, you can see we have an approvals coordinator here as well. Doesn't have to be the same person that was an approvals coordinator on the request side. Could be somebody completely new. That person can come in here and adjust any of the defaults. So the template that this project was created with will come with some default options. So for example, in this one, we're saying that to get from chartering to execution, we should require an approval. Who's going to be the approver? Well, in this case, it's me, but you can have other people in your organization. You can have multiple people in your organization. You can have one or many approvers. There could be additional email text that comes along in the email when this person gets the request to approve it. It could be blank. And you can see here when we're going from execution to closeout, we're not requiring any stakeholder approval. Entirely up to the project manager to decide when it should come out of execution, go into closeout. But then, as far as this default setup is concerned, we're thinking we want to give, again, stakeholders control to get from closeout to closed. You know, maybe they want to do some sort of an audit of all the tasks. They want to do some cost auditing. They want to make sure there's no action items remaining, no outstanding issues, etc. So again, that could be controlled by requiring stakeholder approval to get from that final stage, from the second to final stage to the final stage. And you can see here, it's not just one person in this case, it is multiple people. And then of course, they're gonna have control whether or not to approve the request or reject the request, or maybe ask for some additional information. So great control there. Let's go on to the final agenda item, which is reporting on projects. And again, controlling your projects through reporting as well. So there's several different types. I'd say there's 3 different types of report or formats of reports that you can look at. We have what I would call a list reports. So if you want to look at issues, for example, this would be issues across all the projects. You could, of course, go into a particular project, click on the Issues tab, look at all the issues for that one particular project, or you can come here and look at the open issues across all the projects. And then, of course, you can click into them and get additional granular information about all those issues. I know that project management is often, what a lot of times it really boils down to is issue management, right? It's really just, it's herding the cats and making sure issues are quashed and really not losing control of the issues. So we make it quite easy to do that here. You can slice and dice this. You can look at just the issues that are assigned to you, all of them, or just the open issues that are assigned to you, or of course, look at all the open issues. Equally important is keeping track of all the open risks, because a well-managed risk could potentially, more likely, not become an issue in the first place because you manage the risks. So again, we make it quite easy to look at all the risks across all the projects, and you can do filtering on this. You can filter it by what the risk status is, yeah, or you could just look at all of them wholesale. And again, dig deep by just clicking on the names of the risks. The other type, the second type of report that I'll point to here is dashboards. So with dashboards, you can see it's a chart type of a view. And this is a good way to control your projects as well. For example, we can scroll down to here and see all the projects by health. So for example, we can see, well, the good news is we have a majority of projects that are in the green. But let's try to not lose control of those projects that have a health of red. So we can either drill down by particular attributes, or we can see what's behind these red ones by clicking on View Records over here, clicking on red, and you can see here we have the specific projects that are in the red. We can get some surfaced information about them here. And of course, we can click into these projects and see what's going on with these red projects, or yellow, of course, as well. We'll go back. Another helpful dashboard to control your projects are, for example, cost forecast by project health. So if I scroll down here, you can see, yes, we know that we have red projects, yellow, we have a bunch in green as well, but here we're looking at them in terms of cost forecast. And you can see, well, there's quite the largest chunk of budget or forecasted cost is in the yellow project. So this is something that I would probably want to focus on as well. Again, go back to view the records and see what's going on with these yellow projects that have quite a large sum associated with them. Let's try to dig into them a bit more and see if we could get a better handle on why these projects that are yellow, that have quite a bit of cost associated with them, are yellow. We'll get a good indication of what's going on by clicking into them and going into the status tab. I'm just going to briefly go into, let's go into one of these. So now I'm in the project. Well, in a moment, I'll be in the project. And click on status. And we can see that it's yellow. And we could check either what the latest health, in this case, there is no health comment, but most likely there would be a health comment associated with it as well. And we can, of course, call upon the project manager to see why is this yellow with such a large budget. We could also look at a risk dashboard. So if I go to risk dashboard here, you can see that we've got a graphical chart view of everything that's going on with risks here. Risks by exposure is probably one that you're going to want to really zoom into, because the higher the exposure rating for a risk, the greater the expected impact to the project it will have. So in this case, we may want to see, well, we've got 8 projects that have an exposure rating of 9, which is pretty much the highest. If it has a 10 exposure rating, it probably already turned into an issue. So again, we'd want to click on this and see which specific projects have such a high exposure rating for open risks. We can do that by clicking in there and clicking on that particular bar. And you can see all the projects that have, these are really projects that are most likely, they're well ripe to have issues, to have risks that are about to turn into issues. And we may want to get ahead of that. Of course, we could do the same thing for issues. Let me just go back. We have similar dashboards for issues. So in this case, we may want to see who has the highest number of issues assigned to them. This is another way to keep your projects from getting out of control. And I think this is a great example here. We can see that the largest number of issues actually have nobody assigned to them. Well, that's a red flag for me. So probably my next action that I would take is to click into here, see all of those issues that have nobody assigned to them, get on a call with the project manager and get those issues assigned to somebody, because the likelihood of them getting resolved with nobody assigned is pretty low. So a great way to control the projects through those dashboards. Finally, we have Power BI dashboards as well. So Power BI, we include Power BI dashboards for all of our customers, but not all of our customers are going to have that particular subscription with Microsoft. So it's completely optional. If you chose to incorporate a Power BI license with Microsoft, then you'll be able to make use of the Power BI reports that we include. But again, we include it for everybody regardless. It's just a matter of whether or not you have that particular aspect of the subscription with Microsoft. If you do, you can come to our Power BI reports. You can come to the health chart over here, and you just have another way of viewing all those projects that have either a red or a yellow health. So let's click on red over here, and you can see it filtered down our Power BI reports to just show you those projects that are currently in a red status. You can get even more granular with filters, and of course you can click into these if you want to get more information. We also have work. So I think another important aspect of controlling your projects is to see over allocation of our resources, our most important resource, which is our human resources. So for example, here with this Power BI report, I clicked on work. I can see really just at a glance that Alex Hankin appears to be well over allocated, over assigned. He has 38 action items assigned to him. He has project deliverables assigned to him. He has issues assigned to him. I can click into there, and I can get some more information down here as to which projects is causing that over allocation. And of course, I could even see the specific pieces of work that are over allocating poor Alex. And in this case, again, to prevent any of his projects from getting out of control, I'd probably want to have a conversation with Alex, see what's going on, see, if he's agreeing that he's over allocated, get in, maybe speak with his manager, speak with the project manager, really give everybody a chance to add some color as to why Alex, seems to be over allocated or the most allocated at the very least in all of these projects. So that's our live demo, various ways that you can control the project lifecycle using BrightWork 365 on Microsoft 365. Let's go back to our deck here. So just as a recap, before I hand it back over to Mihal and we get to any questions you might have, flexibility with creating projects, right? So you could either, for those users who have the right security roles, they can just come straight into projects and create projects without going through approvals, or you can go through the more formal request approval process. We give you best practice templates with stage gates. The stage gates could be plentiful. They could be, just a few stage gates. That's part of the flexibility. You can also dictate between which stages you're going to have to get stakeholder approval, as opposed to the project manager just being able to move it along. And you also have flexibility as to what the actual makeup or skeleton of the project or architecture of the project is. Should it have issues and risks? Should it not have issues and risks? That's all within your control. And then we got into some reporting. We have list reports. We have Power Apps charts, which everybody would have access to. And we have Power BI reports, which again, those customers who chose to include that in their subscription to Microsoft would have access to as well. So that's our recap. On to questions. I'll invite Mihal back to the mic.
Thanks very much, Jonathan. You can hear me okay, can you?
Yes.
Excellent. That was really interesting. So folks, there's one or two questions. I might give everybody a chance just to add any further questions. As I said before, you'll have to add them to the questions panel and GoToWebinar, which you may need to expand out with a little arrow. We do have time. So actually, while people are typing their questions, I might just run another quick poll if you'll indulge me. I just want to know, are you guys already using Microsoft 365 for project management? Is it something that's kind of going on already? Yes, I am. Are you using BrightWork maybe? You might not be using, but you are considering it, or it's something that's never crossed your mind before. So while people are adding questions, maybe everybody else could just kind of take a second. And very interestingly, it's a combination of, yes, I am using Microsoft 365 for project management, or no, but I'm considering it. So maybe you weren't quite sure how to go about it. I hope that you've learned a lot from how we do it here on this call. Maybe it's something you want to talk with us further about. Okay, let's take a break from that. Thanks very much, folks. That's really interesting. Okay, first questions first came from Darla, who asked a very important question. Will there be a recording of this webinar? There will, of course, Darla. Keep an eye out for an email from our colleague Adam, whose email is actually on screen there at the minute. And Adam is our best port of call for any kind of further sales info. So he will email you out the webinar recording tomorrow. And we'll also send out any slides that we used today and a few extra ones too. Okay, Jonathan. So first question is from Ranjo. He wants to know, what if an approver makes a mistake and they need to roll back? Would that be possible?
Yep. So the person who submits the kind of starts off the process for the approvals, does have the capability of canceling the request process, and then it would just sort of reset back to the original stage of the process, ready to be resubmitted again.
Okay, cool. Can we have different approval settings depending on project characterization and budget?
Well, you could have, so the answer is yes, but the details would be, you would basically create as many different templates as you wish, give them appropriate names, and when somebody chooses that template from a dropdown, it would already come with all the process that you want to be part of that project, so all the various tabs and modules you saw, the different levels of approval from stakeholders that's required. So it wouldn't be like dynamically adjusted based on a budget, that it somehow sees. It would be more about giving the user the opportunity to choose from a list of templates, and then, depending on which template they chose, it has all of that baked into it.
Excellent. I got that one. Darren wants to know, is the project health a subjective choice from the PM, or is it calculated based on costs, schedule baseline, and scope deviation somehow?
Great question. So going with the theme of flexibility, which you might be tired of me saying at this point, the answer is yes, meaning it could be either way. So let me see if I can get a good example. Let's just go here. So we give, well, you, the administrator, right? Not just anybody, but somebody who has the right security role. They can pretty much dictate how it's going to operate. So, and again, that would be baked into the template as a default, and it can be changed by a person. It can be changed once the project gets created afterwards. If I go into project settings here for this project, you can see I have set health automatically, yes, no. So if set health automatically is no, then it would be subjective. It would be the project manager coming into the status tab and being able to change this manually. If it is set to yes automatically, then what the system will do automatically is it will look at the worst color that's in any of these other attributes here, and that's what it would set the overall health to. So if we pretend that time was red, which I bet is a very popular KPI to go red, then the overall health would automatically set to red. And this would be locked down. So it's really up to you which way it operates. But that's the extent of how it does it automatically.
Excellent. Valerie wants to know, is our product integrated with Microsoft Teams?
So yes, it is. So there's, you can use Microsoft. So the short answer is yes. To give you a little more detail, Teams is integrated. You can integrate it as part of the approval process. So in addition to people getting emails that asks them to make a decision, should it go from this stage to the next, they could also do that directly from within Teams, as well as Teams Mobile, if they want to manage the approval process through Teams. You can do that. You could actually put a tab within Teams where you're actually looking at the BrightWork 365 product from within a tab in Teams. So that's there as well. You can create a Teams channel. Again, so it's a great question, and
It's a whole
I'm thinking
webinar
we probably should have a
itself,
webinar. Yeah, but just real quick, let me see if I could show you. Well, okay, it's empty here, but let's pretend in the real world, this would actually, you have a very easy capability to associate a Microsoft team with a program. Let me just click in here. So the way it works, the hierarchy is the program gets associated with an entire team, and then a project can then be associated with a channel within the team. So it's really actually quite neat the way it does it. And then you can have all these conversations, within Microsoft Teams about that particular project, but it's done through the channel that's in Microsoft Teams. So I think I mentioned that's probably at least 3 different ways that we integrate with Teams, probably a 4th and 5th way as well.
We'll have to do a full webinar on that, I think, Jonathan.
Yeah, as well as other integration points as well. How it integrates with SharePoint, how it integrates with OneNote,
Sure.
Microsoft Office. Yeah, there's a lot of nice conversation we can have.
Not entirely unrelated. We have a question asking, where is all the data hosted?
So all the data is hosted within your Microsoft 365 tenant. So, you know, we give you the app, all the templates and everything, but really all the data is stored within the Dataverse within your tenant. So not with us, for example.
Perfect. Darla has a question here. So, are there existing content templates that could be customized by us instead of starting with a blank template? And are there ways to lock certain aspects of the templates once data is entered?
So to answer the first part, so absolutely, like we expect customers to well, in addition to any content templates that you might create in tandem with your customer success partner, you can then go ahead and manipulate those templates and create brand new content templates as well. And it's fairly easy. I mean, not easy maybe for me to explain in just a minute or two, but let me let me try. So, for example, let's say you just fell in love with the way that this particular project is structured in terms of content. It's got just the best, you know, hierarchy of tasks. It's got amazing risks in it already. And you say, you know what? I want to create a content template from this so that my colleagues can benefit from this awesome job that I just did managing this project. So it's almost as easy. I wouldn't say this is the only step, but you pretty much come to project settings and you would click on copy to new content template. You wait a little, just a short bit of time, that content template gets created. If you want to go look at it later, is again, assuming you have the right permissions, just click on content templates here. Let's pretend I clicked create content template. I waited a minute or two, it's done. I can then just click into it and I could say, I really like it, except I want to get rid of this issue. You know, I don't want that issue to be part of the content template for everybody. I could just delete it straight from the content template and it's done. As far as locking down, well, you know, not just anybody can get into the content template and change it, right? So in that respect, it is locked down. And then once the project is created, again, depending on your security role, you may or may not be able to, you know, change the way that tasks are or delete tasks. So there's some security role requirements, you know, in order for people to mess with it down the line.
Cool. Thank you very much. Oh, and a small follow-up to that is, can you assign different security roles for different projects for the same user?
Not yet. We're working on even like
Cool.
further security role features, but it's not at that granular level just yet.
Okay. I think this is the final question. So Darren, he's had one question already. You've obviously downloaded the free SharePoint template, Darren. You're having some difficulty with that, so that's kind of out of the remit of today's webinar. So I might share with you some resources on installing the free SharePoint template. But I guess that this is a kind of related question. He wants to know, are content templates the same as a SharePoint site template?
No, they're not the same, but I'm glad the question's asked because it gives me a chance to kind of differentiate. So the answer is no, it's not the same, but there are actually two templates that you have control over, right? There's the content template, which just think data, and then there's this other template that we provide you with, which is more about the structure of the project. So short answer is no. The larger answer is when you combine these two types of templates together, you get the final project result. Structure, meaning like, should issues be shown? Should risks be shown? What fields, you know, should be present, as well as data, right, which is the content template. So those two kind of merge together very easily, and you get your end result for the end user of what the project looks like.
Nice. Folks, we said we'd keep you for 45 minutes and we've gone a whole 3 minutes over, so apologies for that, but now might be a good time to call it a day. I think we've got through everybody's questions today, but if you do have any more, Adam is the first place to start. and obviously you'll get an email from him tomorrow with the recording. I hope that you learned a lot from today. I hope it was useful. Hopefully we'll be talking to you very soon. Maybe you'll be more interested in BrightWork 365, which would be great. Otherwise, thank you and have a lovely rest of your day. And thank you, Jonathan, for a fantastic demonstration and for answering all our questions today.
Thank you, Michal.
See you all very soon. Thanks again.
Goodbye.